These PGMS decals are absolutely gorgeous. They've got a spot color of silver, which really brings them to life, and I would like to add a little more life to these panels and stuff. So I am going to cut some of these out and we're going to use them. When the big companies print out decals, they use a screen printing process, so when they put down their top decal adhesive, it's always just in a slight outline of the decal itself. In this case, being essentially a home printed kind of thing, or at least not a super mass produced big time ultra super effort, these are not screen printed. At least these likely came off an Alps printer, which does at least the color white, if not some other ones that a regular printer won't, from what I understand of it. So in this case, if you leave any border, it's going to transfer. So you got to cut these tight to their shape. And in the case of this center console, considering it has no outlines to cut against, you're going to have to do your best guess, unfortunately. What I'm going to do here is try and extend these lines of the color to get a good guess of where that goes. Then from here, the only option is to fit it in place and test it. It looks like I can go just towards the bottom right there. Now the one thing I was hesitating about with these decals, using them, is that they're going to block up my fiber optic holes, and that is no good. So rather what I'm going to do is cut these into even smaller pieces and use them. So for example, these little dials here. And what this means is looking at each brass piece as I'm cutting this, realizing what is fiber optic hole and what is not, cutting out the fiber optics holes and keeping all the rest. This is a nice big section here to cut. So even though the brass is cut with holes in it, the decals still do the color of the button, theoretically at least, I'm guessing. And in this case, what I'm going to try and do is simply poke holes through one of these decals after it's applied and stick the fiber optics through that. I do need to cut out that center circle though, because of the graphic I've already put in there. In the last video series, I was cutting circular masks for the floor, and a few of the comments I got suggested using a compass to cut it, or a scissors, or a compass to draw the circle and then a scissors to cut it. And really, I suspect that a perfect circle such as needed for the floor would be impossible to cut with a scissors, frankly. You certainly can't cut a perfect square with scissors, so why should you be able to cut a circle, which is a far more complex shape? Even using an X-Acto here to cut through this is still going to yield a really incorrect circle. However, it's a very small circle, a lot of details all around it that should distract the eye, and once I've got this fully cut out of here, I can always do the edges a little more. And let's do this test right here. Circling this inner circle with black marker so that when the decal goes down, none of that white should show through, but we'll see. So let me get some warm water for this and we'll give it a try. There's a chance that when I apply the water, that is going to ruin these graphics that are already in there. If that's the case, I've got more spares printed and I'll just knock these out and put new ones in. So here we go. You know, back in college we used to have hot plates to cook food in the rooms. Not supposed to, but a lot of people did. And I'm thinking having a hot plate for your bowl of water would definitely be a fairly useful thing for the intrepid hobbyist. Wow, that fell off fast. That barely got in the water and it's already peeling off the back. Doesn't look like it's sticking to itself though. Let me move the light around here and we'll just slide you off into place, I hope. Real nice and gentle like. There we go. Now some homemade decals, well, I shouldn't say homemade, but as opposed to big time factory decals from the major companies, these are essentially homemade, which is not a slight or a slander at the people who produce them. In this case I think it's JT Graphics, but there's a few other guys out there that do it. JBot is one that comes to mind. Some of them you can use a decal solution to help set them. Other ones though, a decal solution will disintegrate the decal instantly and irrevocably. So the directions on the PGMS decals do say that you can use a decal setting solution. Doesn't say which one, but let's put a little bit on this guy here that I'm not going to use. The colors should be running by now already, and they're not, so I'm going to guess that this is good. It does look like it's changing the colors though. It's probably from the backing paper though that's doing that. So let's bite the bullet and see what happens. Apart from disintegrating the decal, making it bleed, it could also crack the decal to complete uselessness. Given the age of these decals, there is a little cracking going on, but that's not from the decal set, I don't think. There are two major decal setting solutions out there: Walther's Solvaset and Microscale's Microsol and Microset. I go with Solvaset, even though it's the hotter, chemically hotter, more dangerous decal setting solution. It's a one-step thing, which means it's easy. The Microsol is a two-step process. One of the liquids goes down before the decal, one of them goes down after. Use whichever one you think is better, because you're the one that is spending the money and making that call. This decal is already adding a lot of life to these parts. Once these are fully set, I'll poke tiny little holes into them just like this so I can get the fiber optics going. It's better that I not screw around with it right now. Now, in some cases, when you're dealing with really small decals like these pieces here that I just cut up, it's not going to be easy to get those into the water. So, rather than that, bring the water to them. A simple drop will do it. Just be careful that you don't pull the decal up before it's ready, or before you're ready, more specifically. So that is certainly a level of detail that I would not have been able to have gotten by painting. I don't know that I could recommend these PGMS decals enough. They really do add a lot of very good looking life to this. Thought I had a third one here. Ooh, it fell off the backing paper. I must have touched it by accident. There we go. Oh, and it looks like I just lost this little guy. Oh well, that's what backups are for. And in this case, what I'm going to want to do with the backup is simply cut that out of regular paper and glue it down to the surface. Where's my backup? There it is. Where did that fall to? It's still stuck on the paper. Oh, it's a tiny little decal. Try this. Just this one little knob that I want. Kind of match the other side and make it a little more symmetrical than it will without it. No? Alright, let's try cutting. And to make it a little better, I'll outline it with black. And I'll need the slightest bit of blue right there. That is a very good match in this case. So the setting solution should snug these decals right down to the brass. I think they could be a little more snuggy. So I'm putting down just another round of this Solvaset. There we go. So when what the decal setting solution does is melt the decal to some degree. So if you go screwing in with it while it's still wet and melting, you could have some big trouble. Move it around, it'll start stretching and doing all sorts of other bad stuff. But overall, I think this piece is done. Apart from the back consoles, of course. So I'm going to let this cure for a while, and let's take a look at what's coming next. So about 24 hours later, these are looking really nice. I did have to put in a new radar scope on this side because there was a little darkness on one side. Probably smushing around the glue brought up some of the black edge of it and caused the Sharpie to bleed. One ultra important note that I gotta mention right now is that the directions on these decals say do not use an enamel sealer over these decals because they have a lacquer sealer based on them. So if you put enamel over lacquer, bad things could happen. I don't know what they are exactly, but you can't use enamel over lacquer. But a lacquer over enamel is okay. So I'm not going to seal these decals. I'm not going to put any more sealer on this part. It is all done and ready. So let's bag it up.